Go. And we are rolling. For everybody out there, this is Ryan and James from Gridiron Grinder. We're back doing another session here. Basically, we had so much fun last week picking apart the top 10 rankings on ESPN that we decided to do something similar this week. Basically, we're going to jump into the Yahoo Fantasy Football rankings and look at the ADP, talk a little bit about what we like, dislike, and also we're going to pick out like some potential busts, sleeper picks, and value picks, which obviously we still got at least a month before the season starts, so some things are going to change. But hey, we might as well get started now. I'm thinking before we jump in, maybe we just talk for a minute about kind of like how we're defining what a bust is and a sleeper and a value pick. And James, I'll just give you my take on it first, and then you can chime in. So I'm sure everybody probably looks at it a little bit differently, but basically when I look at a bust, I'm thinking a player that you're drafting on your team, or maybe you don't even draft him, but a player in the rankings, and you're expecting that guy to end up being a solid starter on your squad, and he really ends up being performing more along the lines of like a bench player or a backup, and so you got all excited, but he disappointed you. When I look at a sleeper, I'm thinking kind of like the opposite. It's a guy that has a lower ADP, and maybe you're not as expecting as much out of him, but then he surprises you, and maybe he plays at a starter level, or like in fantasy, I think a lot of sleepers, they could hit like your running back two or your wide receiver two, and if you drafted him in the 13th or 14th round, that to me is kind of a sleeper. He doesn't necessarily have to like light it up and get you a dozen touchdowns, but he could be a guy that nobody was looking at that ends up being pretty serviceable throughout the season. And then with the value pick, basically I look at that, it could be anybody, whether it's a rookie or a vet that just, you look at his ADP and you look at what kind of stats he could put up, and you just think that he's a safe pick that's going to get you a good amount of points for where you got him in the draft. So, that's kind of the way I'm looking at it. What do you think?
Basically the same, except for value. The other thing I looked at was an ADP that is 3 rounds or more lower than where you think he should be overall.
Okay. So do you want to give me an example? Like were you, when you were looking through your stuff, did you have like a player in mind that you thought fit that bill?
Well, one of them was T.Y. Hilton.
Okay.
He, I, his ADP is at 70, and I have him more closer to maybe 30s, 40s area
Oh, yeah.
overall.
Yeah. So he's basically a steal at 70, in your opinion. But you
Yeah,
wouldn't really
exactly.
consider him a sleeper because the guy's been on the fantasy radar for a long time. So it's,
Exactly.
yeah, so it's just a good pick if you get him there. I
Yeah, because I
gotcha.
think I think his production last year was because of the quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if you look at the team last year, it was barely their quarterback barely had 2,000 yards or didn't even have 2,000 yards to wide receivers.
Gotcha. Yeah, definitely a drop off from Andrew Luck to Jacoby Brissett. But, honestly, I think Brissett did a pretty good job considering, it was a completely unexpected situation. Uh, Man, that actually jogged my memory. We were in Kentucky when that came out on the news. You remember? We were
Yeah,
down there doing our whiskey road trip, and yeah, that was quite a shocker. But um, yeah, that was a bummer too, man. I liked Andrew Luck with Frank Reich. I thought that was a good combo, and that team was on the up, especially with the way the defense has been playing. But yeah, that definitely was a setback for those guys.
exactly.
All right. Um, well, yeah. So I guess with all that kind of just being thrown out there, why don't we? I guess just start off with the quarterbacks, and I know that I got, my list of picks and you got your list of picks. And so we'll just kind of go back and forth. Maybe some of them overlap. Maybe, we disagree with each other a little bit, talk it out. But, if you want to start, how about you give me your top bust pick at quarterback for this year?
Well, for quarterback, I really struggled to find a real true bust.
Okay. Well, yeah, a lot of them are putting up monster stats now. So I hear what you're saying.
I mean, like, because none of the ones that are top, say, five, going in the top 5 rounds, 6 rounds are, I mean, they're all solid. I mean, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, maybe Dak Prescott. I think he's way overrated for everything. I mean, he's inconsistent. If he was playing Washington or the Giants every week, he would put up big numbers. But against everyone else, he's kind of is like
Underperforms a little bit.
he's underperforms. He has like like against Washington and the Giants, he has like a QB rating of 118. Against everyone else, it's like in the 80s.
Gotcha. See, yeah, for Dak, I know we talked about him a little bit last week, and as a player in the league, I guess I don't know. There's just something about him that I'm not a huge fan of. And you look at the way he started behind, like I think without a doubt the best offensive line in the league a few years ago. That's kind of dropped off a little bit, and timing wise was good for sort of his progression in the league. But from a fantasy standpoint, I think I like him a lot more. I like looking at the weapons. Even Amari Cooper, I think he's streaky. But Michael Gallup, I think he's solid. And then they brought in CeeDee Lamb. I think that's going to be good. And even at tight end, they got Blake Jarwin. But I think one of the things that's going to help him this year is Mike McCarthy being behind him. It sounds like they're going to move to a lot of three wide receiver sets. And, from a fantasy standpoint, I think it's like, hey, maybe if I was a coach or a GM, maybe I would probably pick somebody other than that to be my quarterback. But, for the game purposes, um, I think he could put up some stats. And, I was looking at him. His ADP is like 46 when I checked it the other day, which is kind of like, the start of that second tier. You got Mahomes and Lamar Jackson in the 12 to 15 range, and then it drops off, and you got Dak, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray, and Deshaun Watson from like 45 to 60, which I think you can make the case to go after any of those guys that um, they've got potential to be a top five quarterback, and that's why people are taking them there.
Yeah, but I see, with my rankings, he's the third quarterback overall, and I have him more closer to like the 11th overall fantasy wise.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, so you got him down even further, which, yeah, I guess based off of that, yeah, you could probably call him a bust because, if he's ranked third, but you don't even have him inside your top 10, you're thinking he's going to underperform based on, what Yahoo's thinking, or compared to what Yahoo's thinking, rather.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, I mean, he has a younger, inexperienced receiving core there. I mean, yeah, McCarthy might enhance his value a little bit, but I think this year is going to be a setback year compared to last year for him.
I got you. Well, let me tell you, man. So when I was looking at it, I kind of had the same thought where I didn't think it was very easy to identify a blatant bust pick at quarterback, and but I started crunching some of the numbers and I was looking at some of the stats, and I found that over like the last 10 years or so in our fantasy league with the way we score, which is it's standard scoring, it's not PPR, but it's got like some escalators for yardage if you go over 350 or if you go over 450, as you know, James. But I was looking at it. So over the past decade or so, there's only been four players to have a season in fantasy where they scored an average of 30 points a week or more. And so I looked at what happened to those guys in the following season, and they had an average 8 point per game drop off the following year. And so when I thought about it, I looked at Lamar Jackson, and in our league, he had 32 points per game last year. And I thought, man, if he drops down, let's just say he goes down by the average, which is 8, and it's a small sample size, so it's anybody's guess. But let's just say he came down a little bit, maybe some teams figure him out. He's at 24 points per game, which is still basically the top tier for quarterbacks. But I think if you're drafting him at the start of the second round, that's probably a little bit of a disappointment when you probably could have got the same production out of a guy in the fifth or sixth round. And so he was basically the closest thing I had to a bust. And, I think after the year he had, it's crazy even saying that, but, I think there could be some regression that could lead to that, lead to some of that disappointment.
Yeah, and that with Lamar, that's a possibility. I personally don't think it'll happen. Like he'll regress a little bit because last year he just was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, just tore it up.
But I I still see him continuing similar stats to what he had the previous year. Maybe not as much running stats because I think they have to keep him healthy, have to make him be more not a pocket passer, but not run the ball and get down more instead of trying to extend the plays like he has. But I mean, he still has the ability to avoid the big hit it appeared from last year. But I don't see him really as a bust. I have him as this number two quarterback in numbers wise, and that's where he's being picked. So there's not really much of a disparity there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Hey, there's a lot of reasons to think he'll keep going, and I always worry with that kind of a quarterback if he just takes the wrong hit and that's it, he's out. But like you mentioned last week, and he did a pretty good job last year protecting himself. He got out of bounds. He made some smart plays, and he didn't really expose himself that much. And so I think that he's given himself a pretty good shot at having a repeat. So, but yeah, I mean, hey, that like I said, that was just my as close to a bust pick as I think I could get for quarterback. And it's really not like a bust per se. It's more just like, he could disappoint you.
Yeah.
Um, so, all right, so let's talk about sleepers for a minute. Who do you got at sleeper for quarterback?
I see. I had a couple of them.
All right, give me your
Probably,
top guy.
uh, probably would say Daniel Jones.
No shit. I had the same
Yeah.
guy, man.
It's. I mean, you have Jason Garrett, who I think is a good offensive coordinator, but not a good head coach.
Yeah.
He had a lot of flashes of not not brilliance but of really raw talent in 2019, but he was inconsistent. So if he gets consistent on it, he has, I mean, Saquon Barkley, who can catch the ball out of the backfield and takes a lot of focus from the passing game. He could have, I think, a big year this year.
Oh yeah, I agree with you 100%. He was my top sleeper pick, and when I went back and looked at some of his stats, one of the things that I was intrigued by was that he had 5 games with 300 plus yards, which for a rookie, that's pretty darn good. And I
Yeah,
agree with you. He was definitely streaky, but I think for a rookie, pretty darn good. The turnovers were kind of high. I believe he had 18 turnovers in 13 games, but I think that when you look at the upside, that offensive line should be better this year. That's going to help him. He can take his time. Plus, he's just going to read defenses better. Yeah, Barkley, gives him a little bit of a safety net, takes some pressure off of him. And the receivers, they're not flashy by any means, but he had a clear connection with Darius Slayton. You know, Golden Tate, hey, he didn't really light the world on fire here in Detroit, but he could be a good wide receiver two or a good three, depending on how it shakes out there. And they still got Sterling Shepard and then Evan Ingram at tight end. So I think that, yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. He's definitely got some good upside for this year. Who else did you have at sleeper? I'm just curious.
Teddy Bridgewater,
Okay.
I think. I mean, Joe Brady's a great offensive coordinator, and look what he did with Joe Burrow and at LSU. I know college pro is different, but
Yeah.
and he has a lot of talent around him with what's his name, DJ
Oh,
Moore and the other guy. I can't remember his name off the
well,
top of my head.
I think they brought in Robbie Anderson. That'll help them.
That's it.
Yep.
Robbie Anderson
And then
and then
obviously McCaffrey, the easy check down. McCaffrey will make you look good.
yeah, exactly. And then the other one was Drew Lock in Denver.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
mean, I
he
mean
had some flashes last year when he got in the game.
exactly. And I mean, you had Judy and Hamler to
Oh yeah, to
as
Sutton,
receivers.
and they
Yeah,
got Noah Fant. Yeah, and then honestly for them, I like that pick. I think it's risky because when you look at the stats, he definitely lagged behind some of the other rookies last year. Which I'll talk about that in a minute. But the rookie class last year was phenomenal at quarterback in my opinion. But with him, one of the things that people aren't talking about enough is how they revamped that offensive line. And so they drafted a center and they brought in Graham Glasgow from the Lions, which I'm bummed out that we let him go. But, hey, he got paid there and he's going to be solid there. Um, you know, Even bringing in Melvin Gordon, it'll help having that extra running back, take a little bit of pressure off of him. But yeah, I mean, they just loaded him up with weapons. He's got three solid receiving options. Two of them might need a little bit of time to get up to speed. But then he's got Noah Fant, a young tight end that's going to develop more. And yeah, I definitely see the upside with him.
yeah.
So, what do you think? You want to move to value, or did you have any other sleepers you want to touch
For quarterback, those my big three for sleepers. Value, I think Kirk Cousins.
I did see that his ADP is ridiculously low. And, I kind of thought the same thing. And I'm just pulling him up right now. He's got a 14th round ADP from when I looked at it the other day. And,
Yeah,
yeah, and here's the thing, and I'll let you tell me all your reasons why. And obviously, I'm biased as a Sparty, but last year they ran the ball a lot, and in my opinion, it put them in a bad spot because one, the offensive line was still shaky last year, but two, it was so predictable. It was like run, run, oh, 3rd and 8, I guess we're going to pass, or it was like run, 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 and running's working, so we're just not going to pass. And then all of a sudden it's like, we're behind, we better start passing. And so like when he had to pass, it was so predictable, but yet he still made stuff happen. He still had a really high completion percentage. And, I thought his stats were pretty good considering it was such a run heavy team. Now, going and looking at this year, I think you got another year of the offensive line getting better. They had a couple of younger guys. They drafted a guy, and you still have Dalvin Cook at running back, which they're going to give him the ball a lot. But I think with Gary Kubiak calling the plays, you're going to see a little bit more pass-friendly offense. And I'm thinking like going back like Matt Schaub era down in Houston. Nobody knew who he was, and he started throwing 4,000 yards a year with Kubiak behind him. And I can see Cousins definitely like creeping into back to like that 4,000 plus yard level, which obviously people are not expecting with a 14th round ADP.
yeah, exactly. Plus, I mean, he's consistently in the high 20s for touchdowns and low, like double digits, high single digits for interceptions. He's accurate.
Oh yeah,
I mean, yeah, he might. People are probably knocking him because Diggs is no longer there, but I mean, the guy that's going to replace Diggs, Justin Jefferson,
yep.
is I mean that's another my value pick at wide receiver is Justin Jefferson, who's again 13th round pick. Who I think can easily fill the void left by Stephon Diggs leaving.
Yeah, he definitely has some upside. And, I always worry about that because you look at the drop off and you're like, man, a guy like Diggs, he's proven. And now you got a rookie that's got to adjust to being in the pros. And I thought, okay, so, maybe it's not a 1-to-1 in terms of performance, but I think you're going to see like Irv Smith at tight end is going to step up more this year. And as the season went on last year, it looked like Cousins was connecting better with him, and he'll definitely I think offset some of that. And they have some other guys at receiver too that they're good backups or good threes or fours rather is a better way of putting it. And so yeah, I definitely like Cousins as a value pick. Um, when I was looking at it, man, it's kind of like the Dak thing, man. We were talking about Dak last week, and we were talking about Stafford last week. As players, if I'm coaching that team or I'm the GM, I don't know, man. I probably don't want that guy because I just like with Stafford, as a Lions fan, he's a little too close to me. I've seen him put up big stats every year, but he also throws the ball more than anybody every year. And when the game is on the line, he just doesn't seem to get it done, or at least not enough. But when I looked at him in fantasy, man, I thought he's coming back from injury. You look at what he did in those first, 8 weeks, 7, 8 weeks, whatever it was last year. He was averaging 25 points per game in our league, which would have had him as like the number three quarterback in our league. And obviously the injury derailed it. And who knows if the season went on, he might have like reverted to the mean. Uh, but I kind of looked at him with an 11th round ADP. I thought, man, I would take that upside. I think there's good value there. I think that when you look at his historical stats, he hovers like right around 20 points per game anyhow. And so even if he comes down a little bit, I think he's still going to get you a safe 20 plus point average. And for an 11th round pick, I think that's pretty solid.
Yeah, your audio's going up and down on this.
Uh oh. Well, let me know if it stays that way or if it gets better
All
or
right, I just
worse.
just figured I'd point that out that
Yeah,
just
no,
in case you fix it.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm not sure how to adjust it to be honest, but I guess I'll move a little bit closer, see if that helps maybe.
So then you want to go to running back or wide receiver or unless you had other value picks for that quarterback.
I didn't have any other value picks. I'd be honestly, I'd be willing to throw a flyer on Roethlisberger. He was another one that had a low ADP coming back from injury. But one thing I did want to mention with quarterback is that when I looked at the rookies last year, and I'm talking Kyler Murray, Daniel Jones, and Gardner Minshew, everybody puts them at like a different ranking, obviously, especially when you look at this year where Kyler Murray's got DeAndre Hopkins coming in. But when I looked at last year, I was shocked to find out that in our league, all three of them averaged exactly 18 points per game. And that's just huge numbers for rookie quarterbacks. Like when I go back and I scan all the other quarterbacks I got in my file here, I'm looking at Darnold and whoever else. You're talking like 14, 15 points a game on the high end. All three of these guys had 18, man. I think that bodes well for where they're going to be going in the league.
Yeah. So, so I mean, like I don't Gardner Minshew. I think is just like he's a little bit too inconsistent.
Yeah, he had a lot of hype, when he came on the scene. But I mean, hey, he did tear it up a little bit for a rookie.
Yeah, and like I mean, I I just lost my train of thought. But who's Darnold? I mean,
Oh, Daniel Jones was my other one.
yeah. Well, I mean, I already hit on Daniel Jones with
Yeah, and then Kyler Murray was the third. Which
yeah,
Kyler
Kyler.
Murray, he provides the safer floor out of the three because he runs. And, anytime you got a fantasy quarterback that runs the ball, they get you some safer points from week to week. But yeah, I mean, they were all smack dab right at 18 even.
Yeah. One thing I've been hearing a lot the last few days with Kyler Murray is a lot of people are picking him as a dark horse MVP candidate this year.
Hmm.
adding DeAndre Hopkins and that
Yeah.
offense and having a full year with Kenyon Drake.
Oh
I
yeah.
think I think I mean that's a possibility, but I mean I wouldn't say he'd be. He really doesn't fit into any of the categories because with his ADP of being
It's
fifth
high.
round, that's about where you expect a number one quarterback, fifth, sixth, seventh round, right in there.
Yeah, you're expecting him to be in that top tier, and maybe not quite Lamar Jackson yet, but you're expecting him to be like that right there beyond that. Yeah, so I think his ADP, I think the story lines up. I think if you're willing to throw a flyer out there on Daniel Jones or even Gardner Minshew, maybe you don't want them as your sole quarterback in fantasy, but I think it'd be worth, giving them a rip in the later rounds where their ADPs are at.
Yeah, and, and I mean, but then again though, with Lamar going into last year, I think I got him in like the eighth or ninth round.
Yep. Yeah, nobody was expecting that.
Yeah,
So
I
those
mean,
diamonds in the rough, they're out there. Yeah.
I was high on him last year. I thought he had a chance of doing so. I didn't expect what he did. I definitely had picked him up as a potential keeper for our league because I had Watson and ended up not being able to figure out which one to start
Oh
between the
yeah.
two, and always made the mistake of, well, Lamar had a down game this year, and I started him, and Watson put up 700 points against some podunk team.
It's funny you say that. My brother actually had the same thing go on in a work league we did last year. He had both guys, and every week he was like, "Wow, what do I do?" And eventually, I talked him into trading Deshaun Watson, and I'm like, "Dude, go out and get a running back. Go out and get a wide receiver. Like you got two of these
Yeah,
guys, you can only start one of them." And he didn't make the playoffs, but I think the trade helped him. It just was a little too late. So, all right, well, yeah, hey, let's look at running backs. Who do you got as your bus candidates?
bus candidates for running back. I have Aaron Jones
Okay,
in Green Bay and Todd Gurley.
gotcha. All right,
I mean,
give me a little bit on each of them.
well, Aaron Jones. I mean, his ADP's 15, which I think is about right for what he did last year. But I mean, you have AJ Dillon
Yep.
um, that that they drafted this past year. So I mean, they're not sold on him. Obviously, not sold on him being their number one running back. And AJ Dillon's going to steal a lot of playing time from him if he has any talent that they think he did because didn't they take him in like the second round?
I believe so, yeah. And they still have Jamal Williams too, who at times showed his potential, which is probably why in years past him and Aaron Jones always split the work and kind of went back and forth because they both have a different skill set. But yeah, now you got a three-headed monster that. And with LaFleur, it's like, hey, it's anybody's guess who he's going to commit to because like last year, I mean, hey, they went run heavy when everybody was expecting Aaron Rodgers to have like 5,000 yards, So who knows? We'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, and then with Todd Gurley, I mean, a ADP of 31, I think is a little high for what Gurley did last year. Yeah, he's on a different team, but I
There's a
mean,
lot of risk.
there's a
Yeah.
lot of risk. Atlanta is last year passed the most out of any team in the league.
Well, yeah, and one thing that yeah, I agree with you with Gurley, there's a lot of risk that people aren't talking about is how bad Atlanta's offensive line is, and
Yeah,
I think they're expecting some of these guys to come back from injury and some things to happen, but man, I don't know. I think they're asking a lot for Gurley to be that high in the fantasy ranks.
yeah, and also like I mean, we don't know how well his arthritic knee's doing,
Yep.
and I mean, he just seems to, based on last year, and I mean even towards the year before, towards the end of the season. I mean, look, they didn't even use him in the Super Bowl really.
Oh, I know. Yeah, that was weird. But
So
yeah, obviously something was going on. Yeah,
yeah, so I mean, how who knows what's going on with him if he really can. Yeah, he passes physical to sign the contract in Atlanta, but who knows really what's going on with him.
I got you. So yeah, from my end, I ended up picking two guys, and one of them I definitely got to explain, but the other one I think you and I already talked about a little bit this past week, which is Austin Eckler. Um, Man, I see his ADP, and I can't help but think there's going to be some disappointment when you look back at his stats. It's so heavily weighted on him catching the ball out of the backfield, and they just never really committed to him running. I know when Melvin Gordon was out, he had a couple games where he put up some rushing stats, but some of those were like breakaway runs that kind of like skewed his numbers that I don't think people saw. But then when you look at the team this year without Rivers, I think their passing game is going to take a huge step back, which is going to negatively impact him. But on top of that, you still got Justin Jackson, and they went out and drafted Joshua Kelly. You know, to me, Eckler is more of a complementary back where you have one of these other guys doing some of the work on first and second down, and you get him in there on the passing downs. And I think maybe early on, they try and give him the full workload, but I got a feeling there's going to be a crack in that game, and these other guys are going to steal some of those carries.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I was with him. I didn't have him as a bust, but I had him as a list. I wrote him up as a risky pick
Yeah,
because I mean at what is that, the
yeah. Let's
13th
see.
13th best running back for based on his a pick ADP of about 20, so a third
20's
round.
high, man. Yeah, 20's
And
early third round. Yeah,
then you have either Taylor or Herbert at quarterback. So I mean, teams are really going to be able to focus on stopping the run, and you're going to probably get Taylor Herbert, who are going to be focusing on passing to the number one receiver and not really being able to check down.
yeah. Or they'll go to Hunter Henry.
Yeah,
Those lesser quarterbacks, man, they love their tight ends. But um, yeah, and then my other one, you might think is a little bit of a shock, and like I said, it's like I kind of got to explain it a little bit, but it's Alvin Kamara. I think that he's not going to fall off the face of the planet, but I think he's going to be a little bit of a disappointment when you look at where he's going. Yahoo, at least on an ADP standpoint, has him as like the fourth ranked running back, and I've seen him in other rankings as high as two. And I think if you take a guy that high, you're expecting big time stats week in and week out. And I think, like we saw last year, I know he had some nagging injuries that affected him, but he was more of a player that could light it up when somebody else was the bell cow, you know? And like you go back to when they had Mark Ingram, that was Kamara's best year. And it's like, I was actually shocked last year that they didn't give Latavius Murray the ball more to try and balance it out. They basically waited until the wheels were falling off Kamara, and I just I think he's super talented. I think he's a game-changing player, but I just worry about his ability to carry the full workload like they tried doing with him last year.
yeah. I almost had him as a bust.
Okay.
I almost did. I thought his ADP was really high for him based on his production. Yeah, if Breeze is healthy for the full season, he'll benefit from it a little bit. But I mean, he really doesn't score TDs,
Yeah.
and his TD production needs to increase a lot for him to be a good option as a number one running back and a first round running back pick.
Yeah. And I think, maybe if you're doing PPP, blah, 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 PPR, he's a little bit safer because he gets a lot of receptions. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just, I like him. I want to see him succeed. I just worry that he needs somebody else to carry the load with him, and that's when he's at his best.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I guess let's talk about sleepers for a minute, man. Who do you have as your top sleeper at running back?
My top sleeper at running back is Keyshawn Vaughn
Oh,
in
nice.
Tampa Bay. I mean, he's going to be, from what I'm reading and what I'm seeing, he's probably going to be the starter by October, like the number one back October. He he had excellent stats in college. Again, I know there's a difference, but I mean, he played in Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
I mean, they were pretty much a crappy offense in Vanderbilt, and he put up good numbers. He'll have better blocking in front of him in Tampa Bay. He can catch the ball, which I mean, Brady loves throwing to running backs and tight ends.
Oh, yeah.
Tight ends.
Think James White over all the years. Yeah.
James White. Um,
Oh, going back to Andy Woodhead. Yeah. There's been
exactly.
plenty of guys. Yeah.
So that I see him as probably my biggest sleeper overall.
Okay.
It it might not be right away September, but I mean, you get week 5, week 6. I mean, he's going to start lighting it up.
Yeah. I think that that's definitely that's a good one. When I was looking at it, so I'm just scanning through my notes here real quick, but this is one that I think a lot of people at first might think, this guy can't be a sleeper. But then when you look at his ADP and you look at the scenario, I think maybe you think, I guess if you were going to say, this guy, he probably could be a sleeper, which is Tevin Coleman with the 49ers. You hear all the trade talk with Raheem Mostert and, I know Coleman, it seemed like he fell out of favor a little bit last year, but he did have some injuries that he was fighting. When he was healthy, though, he did put up some big stats. And so, I think that him and Shanahan, they can get it together as long as he's healthy. And if they trade Mostert, who else is he going to be fighting with? Jareth McKinnon? I mean, I think, the last 2 years have shown McKinnon, I mean, you miss 2 years in the league, a bounce back, it's not impossible, but it's very difficult. Um,
Yeah.
and when you look at Coleman, normally I wouldn't pick a guy that's as seasoned as him as a sleeper pick, but his ADP is 13th round. I think there's major upside at that level.
Yeah, my problem with Coleman though is I don't think he fits right in that offense. I just something about how when he was healthy, I mean, he barely did anything when he was playing. And at the beginning of the year last year, he was the number one guy. And I mean, he fell out of favor real quick.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, and I think when you you go back and you look at him in Atlanta, some of his success there, it's kind of like on a whole different level. I don't want to compare him to Alvin Kamara, but um, I think he had better success when he was part of the one-two punch with Devonta Freeman. And, maybe if you find that guy in San Francisco, he could get back to that level. And even if he got back to just that level, I think for a 13th round pick, to me, man, that's well worth taking. But, we'll see. There's a lot of moving pieces with that may or may not happen in San Fran.
Yeah. And the other sleeper I had at running back is Marlon Mack.
Oh yeah, we talked about that a little bit, but
Yeah.
yeah, give me your rundown.
So so Philip Rivers tends to pass to the running back a lot. I mean, um, everyone's assuming that Taylor's going to be the guy there, but I mean Taylor had some fumble issues in college. He's not really that valuable right now in the passing game, and I think that as when the early season, it's going to be you have the issues with lack of real offseason and chemistry and or knowledge of the offense in Indy, and it just I just
Yeah,
see Mac at being an 11th round pick is I think at least for the first half of the year is gonna put up
some
similar numbers
upside.
to what he did.
Yeah, yeah, and Jonathan Taylor, yeah, he's got to prove he can handle the pass protection, which, They've got an older quarterback now, but they do have one of the best offensive lines. And so, yeah, I could see, Mac definitely has some potential. And, I have heard, different things about them give him the first shot at it. And so we'll see how it plays out. But, one thing that I don't know if we talked about this week when we were, texting back and forth, but, and I've got this as one of my value picks, which is, you flip a coin, but Naeem Hines, man, he could be like Indy's version of Eckler, where
Yeah.
he's their receiving guy. And Rivers loves checking down like that. I mean, just look at how much he passed to Eckler. Uh, I don't really see Mack or Taylor stepping in and catching that many passes. And so Hines, when I was looking at it, geez, I mean, here, let me just pull up his ADP. Man, he was at I I actually didn't even hang on. I didn't even have him on here. I couldn't even find his ATP, which means he wasn't in the top 150 unless I missed him. I mean, for that, geez, you threw your last pick of the draft on him, and if he ends up putting Eckler numbers or even close, that's a sweet bench player, man.
What is his ADP?
Yeah, so I think when I was looking at it, he wasn't in the top 150, so I didn't even put him down. I just had him as my didn't make the cut player. But if you go to like it's like Yahoo only lets you go so far with ADP. If you go to like Fantasy Football Calculator, they do, I think, much more in depth. They go farther. And I didn't look him up on there, but I got to believe he's like just outside of the top 150. And I see you
Yeah.
looking for it.
Yeah, I'm I just went to ESPN to see if I could find him.
Hey, that's cool. While you're looking, let me move on to my value picks because he was one of them. But I actually had three of them in here. And the other one that I had that I liked that's a higher ADP is Leonard Fournette. I know this guy has had a checkered run in Jacksonville. And for how high they drafted him, he's just kind of been generally looked at as an underperformer. But when I see him with a fifth round ADP, I'm thinking, man, you're getting a really freaking solid running back two in fantasy in the fifth round. That to me is a ton of value. I mean, this guy, I think last year was his worst fantasy year, and in our league, he still put up 12.9 points a game. I mean, that's, for a running back two, you get him in the fifth round, I'd take that any day, man.
Yeah.
And then my third one, this is a guy coming back from injury, but and hey, he's one of these guys. Maybe it'll never happen for him, but Darius Geis, he's got a 10th round ADP this year. If this ended up being the year that he stayed healthy, a 10th round pick for that guy, man, that'd be a steal. And you're just looking at like 10th round. I mean, maybe you load up on running backs early, and this guy ends up being your fourth running back. You get him in the 10th round, third or fourth guy. He could be a game changer for your team, especially if you have one of your starters go down. But I know the injury is a huge risk, and that's probably why people are dogging him with the 10th round pick, man.
Yeah. So I couldn't find. I just did my quick look see if I could find it. And I couldn't find hit. What's Harry's? Was it Harry? I was looking for.
Naeem
Yeah.
Hines, yeah.
Naeem Hines.
Yeah,
Sorry.
he's buried, man. He's down there. Nobody thinks he's got a shot this year.
Yeah. So for running back value picks, one I was looking at was Latavius Murray, much for the reasons why I dislike or had issues with Kamara. I think Latavius Murray. I mean, he still put up good stats last year. Murray did. So and then
When they gave him the
just
ball, yeah.
yeah, when they gave him the ball, let me just get the stats real quick. So
You got a fantasy mag over there?
yeah, I
I
have
like it, man. Old school.
two
I
of them.
actually, I just got one in the mail, and I got it sitting next to me, but I haven't really flipped through it yet.
Let me see if I can find Murray. Yeah, he's not going to be here, is he?
Yeah, here I can scan my sheet here and try and tell you what he did in terms of
There we
points
go.
per game.
There we go. So last year, I mean, Latavius Murray put up, what was that, 700 yards, 5 touchdowns, rushing, 235 and a touchdown in the passing game. I mean, that's still, I mean, that's solid. I mean, for what is he, 13th round ADP at 121?
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that, man. And then yeah, I mean, hey, if Kamara falters again, maybe this is the year where they say, hey, we got to go back and we got to split that workload more evenly. And
Yeah,
I mean, geez, that could be like the perfect deal. Latavius Murray he's grinding it away, and then Kamara can be like the electric change of pace guy, like he was with Mark.
yeah. And then another one I had was Le'Veon Bell for my value picks. I mean, his
Yeah, where's he at ADP? Because I know he's
80
yeah, he's one of those guys that everybody's like, oh, he's not going to do anything.
ADP's like 44 and a half.
Oh yeah, so yeah, he's got like a mid fifth.
Yeah, so but position rank based on the ADP, I mean that's like 22. And I think he's probably borderline top 10 early teens for position. I mean, he's probably mid 20s for like overall ranking.
Yeah,
And if you look at his 2019 year, I mean, he had shoulder, knee, and ankle injuries, but I mean, he still started. I mean, if he comes in healthy, he should have similar years to what he did in Pittsburgh and for the Jets. Also with what's his face, Darnold.
yeah, Darnold. A lot of people forget. Last year to start the year, Darnold got mono, missed all those games, and also, man, it really bothers me. People always forget that the Jets' offensive line was just so bad, man. And so when you're Le'Veon
Yeah,
Bell, you don't stand a chance. You can't put up the numbers you did in Pittsburgh. You're a one-man band for all those weeks, and I mean, hey, once again, I'm Sparty biased, but yeah, I think he's got a shot of bouncing back this year. I think a lot of people are making up like, oh, they brought in Frank Gore, and it's gonna take away from what he wants to do. Gase doesn't like him. I don't know, man. I think the offensive line should be a little bit better this year. Darnold will be back. He'll be better this year. I think a lot of that opens it up and it gives Le'Veon Bell the shot to definitely put up some better stats. I don't know that he's going back to the Pittsburgh stats, at least not this year, but it should be an improvement from last year for sure.
yeah. And another one I was looking at. I mean, it was Philip Lindsay. I just for some reason I'm not sold on Melvin Gordon.
Oh, I agree. I can't get behind it. He has a sub 4 yards per carry average. I don't know, man. And then Philip Lindsay, you're just talking about like the ultimate outperformer. Why wouldn't you just keep going with that guy?
Yeah, and with his, I mean, you're taking a 12th round flyer on him. I think he can still put up stats. I think probably by mid-year they're going to move on from the debacle that's going to be Melvin Gordon, and Philip Lindsay's going to be the number one guy again.
Yeah, I didn't realize they had Lindsey that low, but I got to believe he definitely does better.
Yeah, your audio just cut out.
Oh, is that better?
Yeah, that's better.
I think I got it.
Huh?
I got to get so close. No,
No, no.
I'm
That,
having
that
technical difficulties.
there we go. That's better.
All right. All right. So, did you have anybody else, or do you want to move on to wide receiver?
No, that's all I had for running back, wide receiver. I can move on to let's. You want
All
to
right.
do sleepers for wide receiver?
Here, let me start with my bust pick because
Okay.
I know you're going to disagree with this based on earlier comments, but I actually put in here DJ Moore as my bust pick, and you got to just let me explain it for. I like DJ Moore. I had him in some fantasy leagues last year, and I believe also the year before. he wasn't really even on the radar. My concern is not him. My concern is Bridgewater at quarterback. And, I know that their offense it's like going to be this new, more progressive offense. And, we'll see what happens. But, like last year when Bridgewater played for New Orleans, he really didn't pass that much. And, McCaffrey is really the focal point of this offense. And so, I mean, that's not a big enough argument to say he's going to drop off from where he was last year, but his ADP is so much higher this year than what it was previously. And then so I worry with Robbie Anderson coming to town, and they've got a tight end that's been getting better. I think maybe some of that takes it away, and DJ Moore maybe regresses just a little bit. But I know this is not a popular pick for you. I just kind of looked at it and I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm just not sold on Bridgewater yet. But hey, hopefully he surprises me because I do like DJ Moore.
Yeah. No, I can see that. I mean, he but if you look at last year, he still had a highly productive year,
Yeah,
and
with
I mean,
who was the quarterback? I forget the guy's name. He's
uh
in Washington now, but uh, Kyle something,
yeah, Kyle. Oh, what the heck was his name?
or maybe I'm way off.
No, no, I think you're right. I think it was a Kyle. It was
Slippy, Slappy, Swanson. Swanson. That's a Dumb and Dumber reference.
yeah. Let me see. Carolina, or no, Washington's what I want to look up. What the heck was his name? Was it Kyle
Maybe
Allen?
that sounds right. He did
Yeah, I think
good
that's
with Cam going down and him getting thrown into the deep end. I thought he did really good.
yeah, it was Kyle Allen. But I mean, last year, and plus they had Kyle Allen. Kyle Allen was hurt for a little bit. I mean, you had let's look at his stats. Look at DJ Moore. I mean, you had the instability at quarterback, and he still
It was like
had
11
had the solid
yards
year.
or something. Yeah. All right. So, well, that was my bust, and I know you like
Yeah,
him. So,
he had
I don't know.
had
Give me.
almost 1,200 yards, and I mean his TD production wasn't really there, but I mean Carolina really didn't score that
Well,
much.
and you get close. You're going to let McCaffrey do the work, but
Yeah,
hey, maybe with Bridgewater, it ends up being better this year.
yeah. So
So
I'll go with my bust for wide receiver first, and that's Devontae Adams.
okay. Well, you're not. Hey, you're not ruffling my feathers. I had him in fantasy last year, and it was like the typical Brian curse in fantasy. You take a guy early, and he underperforms. And I know that a lot of that was injury related, but it was like, man, these last couple of years, I was so high on Devontae Adams, and then as soon as I get a piece of the action, it was like, there we go, guy got hurt.
Yeah, and for a second round pick, I mean he needs to score more TDs. I mean last year
Yeah.
he had five.
But so let's say he goes back to 2018. I think those last couple years before, he did put up some good touchdowns. I think last year the run first approach and the nagging injury hindered him. But if you look at this year, I think a lot of people are high on him because they just say Rodgers has nobody else to throw to.
Yeah, but I mean still in the last year he had 7 games that he didn't put up more than 55 yards.
Yeah, that's not good.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. His first 7 games he had 55 yards per game.
Gotcha.
And the lack of TD production, I mean, that's not a second round pick. That's like a late, say, 12th round pick. That's
Yeah, you're giving him the business, man. I don't know that he falls that far, but I hear you. Yeah, he's definitely for that high of an ADP, it's risk.
no, no, for less than 1,000 yards, less than for first 7 games. I mean, you're not looking at a number one wide receiver there for his what his production is, you're
Yeah,
looking
yeah.
at maybe a third wide receiver, backup bench wide receiver that you're going to play one offs.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people are expecting him to come back healthy and get back to that double-digit touchdown level that he was at before. But I hear what you're saying, man. I mean, hey, there's some risk there. Did you have anybody else in the bus category?
I did. I had Allen Robinson.
Oh, wow. I wouldn't have expected that. I was thinking, well, I guess he's got a high ADP, but I've kind of been high on him just because I'm thinking Foles at some point is going to win that job, and he's finally going to have a real quarterback tossing him the ball. But what are you thinking? What are you seeing?
So number like for his ADP of being 30.7 ends up being the number 9 receiver overall. I have him more as the 18th receiver overall.
Okay, so oh man, 18, you got him past Amari Cooper, you got him past Cooper Cup. Man,
And I mean, I mean, Foles, I don't think is much of an upgrade over Trubisky. He is an upgrade, but I don't think he's much of an upgrade over Trubisky. If you look at what Foles did when he was healthy in Jacksonville, I mean,
well,
Gar-
yeah, he struggled, I
and
know.
he struggled. He's the only high level receiver in Chicago, which will allow teams to focus on him a lot more. Chicago hasn't shown that they can really put up much in the running game.
Yeah, David Montgomery was a bit of a letdown last year, and I don't know what it is. They just decided not to get Tariq Cohen involved like they did in years past, and so yeah, hey, that's Matt Nagy for you. But all right, so yeah, you're not big on him. Let's see. All right, so let's go to let's look at sleepers, man. Who do you have as a sleeper for wide receiver?
All right, your volume cut out. So sleepers for going to sleepers for wide receiver. One of them I have is Mecole Hardman. I mean, he's a similar receiver to Tyreek Hill. He's speedy. He has that big play potential. I mean, he's looking at a 13th round pick based on his ADP. Um, and
Yeah,
I
arguably
think
arguably the best quarterback in the game throwing. Yep,
exactly, which Mahomes at quarterback just increases everybody in that offense's value.
I got you.
Um, and also, if he can, which I think will happen, he'll surpass Sammy Watkins. His production could be top 40 wide receivers, top 30 wide receivers in fantasy wise.
I got you. Yeah, I tell you, man, Sammy Watkins. I remember watching him coming out of college and just watching him at the combine, and he was just such like a clear cut above the other wide receivers. And I thought, wow, this guy's just going to tear up the NFL. And he just like has never really put it all together. But yeah, I could see him fall into their number three, and maybe Hardman takes over. I think that's kind of what they were hoping, is at some point they would get a homegrown talent to step up. And I mean, obviously they got Tyreek Hill at one, but I'm just talking filling in the depth. But I could see
Yeah,
some of that happening. Yeah, yeah. I had
and
uh, I had for mine. This was another one where, man, I don't like calling out vets as sleeper candidates, but I looked at the ADP and I thought, man, how could you not be going after Emmanuel Sanders? I mean, he's going to be arguably, probably not even arguably, he's going to be the best wide receiver two that Drew Brees has had his entire time with the Saints, man. I mean, it just, and I'm just looking for my note here. He's got a 13th round ADP. Like that. Basically, people are thinking he's washed up and that's it. I mean, just a couple months ago, he almost had the game winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. I mean, the dude broke away. If Jimmy G didn't overthrow him, man, I think it'd be night and day. Everybody would be singing his praises. But and I love it too because he'll be behind Michael Thomas. I think that bodes well for him. It's going to give him less pressure to get open and make some magic. And Breeze knows how to spread the ball and make it work. I know there's a lot of mouths to feed. I think for a 13th round pick, man, he's at least going to be a wide receiver 3 in fantasy, if not better.
Yeah, and plus, like, I mean, I was looking to see if I could pull up his stats real quick from last year. I mean, I remember him. He had a decent year last year, and he had Jimmy G throwing in the ball with
Yeah.
with Drew Brees there, and plus being the number two behind Michael Thomas, which everyone's gonna. I mean, he's gonna have the easier matchups in for against where in uh, brain fart
New Orleans.
New Orleans. New
Yeah.
Orleans. I mean, last year he had almost 900 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he was targeted 100 times, just under 100 times.
Yeah, and he got traded mid-season.
Exactly. So I mean, that's a solid one. One that I was looking at was Robbie Anderson in Carolina.
Okay.
So I mean, he has defenses are really going to focus on stopping McCaffrey.
Yep.
He's not going to be the number one, which he'll have the easier matchup. And I mean, I think Bridgewater's a better quarterback than what's Darnold.
I got you.
I keep having these brain farts that are killing me.
Yeah, we're getting older, man. It's
Yeah.
more and more frequent
Plus,
as we get this.
plus the fact that I was looking for his I didn't note his stats last year, and I was starting to look for it as I was talking.
Well, here's one that I think as we get closer to the draft, this guy's going to start climbing the charts, and it's a rookie, Jalen Rigor. I know I'm botching it, but he's a rookie in Philadelphia. This guy is stepping into a perfect situation with all the turmoil they have. Deshaun Jackson just got in trouble. Alshon Jeffrey, it looks like he's going to start the year on top. You know, this guy could be coming in and being their top wide receiver right out of the gate, man, for a rookie. And I know that it's like a risky proposition for him. But I think from a fantasy perspective, man, you got to love the opportunity. He's also one of these guys. I keep saying it, 13th round ADP, 13th round ADP. He's sitting there in the 13th round, man. That's like your wide receiver 5, man. I would take the shot on that guy. And, and then this one is like really more, I think, super sleeper at this point, or a deep sleeper, as some people would say it, is Laviska Shenault from Jacksonville. Man, I watched that guy make some freak plays at Colorado, and I know he's not going to be beating out DJ Shark in Jacksonville, but I think as the year goes on, he is going to beat out D.D. Westbrook and be their number 2. But you got a 1-2 punch with him and Shark, and you got Minshew maybe progressing. Man, I think in time, like next year for sure, 2021, I'd be all over Laviska Shenault in fantasy, man. I'd be going after that guy. But the cat might be out of the bag by then.
Yeah. So I'm questioning whether the Rhaegar and Rhaegar, however you pronounce it,
That's the
is
problem. We've been so far away from football now that we're like, oh my God, what was that guy's name? I mean, the
yeah,
draft was 3 months ago.
in Philadelphia. I don't know if they're gonna if he's gonna catch. Plus, I mean, Philadelphia passed their tight end the most last year.
Yeah, and they have two good tight ends too.
Yeah, and so it's just I don't I don't know if I'd really call Rager a sleeper. And I did get Robbie Anderson had 800 yards and 5 TDs.
Gotcha.
So I mean that's with inconsistent quarterback play. If Bridgewater can be consistent, I think that's there's possibility that he can put up more.
All right, so give me some value picks. Who do you got a wide
All right.
receiver?
No, the one I mentioned earlier for my example was T.Y. Hilton. I mean, you're picking,
Oh yeah,
they have him going seventh, eighth round. He missed 6 games in 2019, so his numbers were down. Um, his quarterback, or I'm sorry, the receivers in Indianapolis only caught 150 total passes and less than 2,000 yards from Bridgewater, or not Bridgewater,
Jacoby
Brissett.
Brissett. Yeah,
Brissett. And with having Rivers at quarterback, I mean, he's gonna have more opportunity to put up numbers. Um, Based on his ranking, his ADP, that's like the number 26 receiver. I have him probably top
yeah.
20 or probably 15th receiver and probably number 36 overall.
Okay.
And so, I mean, that's seventh, eighth round. You're looking at 3+ rounds value if you
Yeah,
can get them in the seventh, eighth round.
that's a good deal. Yeah.
And the other one I had was Justin Jefferson.
Oh yeah, you're digging that guy, helping
Yeah,
Cousins.
he's he's the number his ADP of 128. So you're looking at 13th 13th round, 14th round as pick. I have him closer to the 85th overall.
Okay.
So I mean that value is good. I mean he's the clear number 2 guy there
Yeah,
with Thielen, and I just think he can fill that void that Diggs left.
I got you. Yeah, so I had two here on my notes is or on my list is Brandon Cooks. I think is one of them. Just looking at him, I mean, man, I know last year did not go the way he wanted. It was a rough year. But I think that you see the talent in what he's done in previous seasons. I think that as the year goes on, he ends up being Deshaun Watson's top guy. And I think Will Fuller has a ton of talent, but man, the guy just keeps getting hurt. And so, and then also, Kenny Stills just got in trouble. So I think Brandon Cooks, as they get time on the field and they get time to practice, is going to lock in that wide receiver one spot, which is a valuable spot with Deshaun Watson throwing him the football. The other guy I really like, and hey, here we go. It's another Lion, but it's Marvin Jones, man. This guy has, and here we go. I'm chirping it again. 13th round ADP right now. Marvin Jones has been steady as heck in fantasy, man. And you've got Stafford coming back. I think Marvin Jones blows that 13th round ADP out of the water, man. And
Mhm.
hey, maybe as we get closer to the draft, he starts climbing up the board. But for where we're at right now, I'm shocked he's that low.
Yeah, I agree. But one thing with Stills is he got in trouble, but I mean, they actually dropped the charges on him for what he did.
Because it was a group thing, I think that yeah, I think it'll be okay. You never know. I mean, I don't know the whole details of that well, but you've got a huge movement going on right now, and it was a
Yeah.
huge group of people that was involved, and they all got in trouble, and it's not a good situation. I don't want to like pretend like I know exactly what happened, but yeah, I mean, hey, the best case scenario is that it works out. He's okay. It was maybe a little bit more than how it was initially perceived to be, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, so there's not going to be anything, especially with what the league came out with, where Goodell's video response to the players' video. I mean, he's not going to be suspended or anything from the league. But I just want to point that out, that I'm not really worried about him this
Yeah,
year.
So he'll still be in the mix. He'll be either two or three, depending on if Will Fuller gets hurt. But I like Kenny
Yeah.
Stills, man. I liked him in Miami, and I thought when Houston picked him up, I thought it was a good pick. And
And didn't Houston also pick up Randall Cobb this year?
they did, but man, I don't buy the hype. A lot of people are like, oh, Randall Cobb, man, but I see him just as like a handful of plays a week. He's going to specialize in something, and it's going to work. I don't see like some, you know, like renaissance where he comes back like he did in Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it's just too far removed at this point. But hey, you never know. It'd be a pleasant surprise. It'd be good for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So, what are you thinking? You want to move on to tight end?
Yeah, I can do tight ends. I have to have some notes on that.
Okay. Well, let's do it, man. Who do you got as a bus candidate?
So bus for tight ends.
I'll give you mine if you want. If you want me to start
Yeah,
it off.
let
Yeah,
you
I'll
go
give you.
first
I'll
on
give
that.
you a minute to get your composure. So this is one that I think a lot of people maybe would disagree with, but I've said that before tonight. Um, I go Darren Waller as my best pick. I think he had a great year last year, coming out party. Took a lot of people by surprise. And man, I tell you, I remember last year when I was doing my fantasy stats and looking at different players and whatever was going to happen. There was like two guys that called it out that Darren Waller was going to be a breakout guy at tight end. And I thought, man, maybe I go after him in like the end of my draft. And I didn't do it, but uh, you know, he had a great start to the year. I think when you look at the end of the year, it was a totally different story. Derek Carr started building a rapport with Hunter Renfrow, and the targets went down for Waller. I think when you look at this year, they drafted a wide receiver in the first round. They brought in Jason Witten, which I don't think is huge of a factor. But I know Gruden loves his veteran players. Um, I don't know, man. I think there was like a slow changing of the guard as the year went on with Waller, and I think he'll be good. I just don't think he's going to be worth his ADP. That's just kind of my thought.
Yeah, and the thing with Waller is I don't I don't know how to read him coming into this year. The one thing I you can say is he catches the ball. 77% of the passes thrown to him, he
Yeah,
catches.
when I watched him play, man, he looked great. He really did. He's one of those guys, really athletic tight end, really fluid. Yeah, I mean, I think if you focused your offense on getting him the ball, man, he could be one of the top receiving tight ends in the league. But I don't know, something about what happened with Derek Carr and Hunter Renfrow, he just clearly started looking away from him, and I think that's going to be a factor that carries over.
And so my boss is probably going to be one that a lot of people disagree with, but George Kittle
Mm.
I mean he has a ADP of 22.
Yeah,
I
and it's
mean
a run first team.
Jimmy G inconsistent at quarterback. He has inconsistent quarterback. He has inconsistent, which gives him inconsistent production. He has he yeah. If his shoulder injury is healed this year, he should have a decent year, but not worth a top 25 pick in fantasy for with a quarterback that limits his upside.
I agree. I like him. I love those physical tight ends, those game changing tight ends. But yeah, he's on a run first team with a quarterback that is streaky. I think the one thing he has going for him, at least to start the year, is Debo Samuel is probably not going to be healthy for week one. Of course, we'll see how that plays out with COVID, um, but yeah, man, it's so high for a tight end, man. And I think when you look at this year, which I think we've said a lot in the past. Oh man, there could be a lot of tight ends this year, and there usually never is. There's only a couple of them. This is one of those years where you look at the field and you say, yeah, you can make the case that there's more depth at tight end than there has been in recent seasons. And so, can you really justify taking that high of a pick when you could get a stud wide receiver or still a very high end running back? Not top tier running back, but you're getting a really quality guy for your team at that same ADP.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, like if you look at that for Kittle, I mean, right behind Kittle in ADP is Edwards-Helaire from Kansas City,
Yep.
or Galladay, Mike Evans.
Oh yeah, Mike Evans, man. I tell you what, that's one that I've gone back and forth on a lot because you saw how well Brady was connecting with Edelman and these like smaller, like quicker receivers, and I just wonder like, is this going to be a game changer for him having Mike Evans, or is it going to be a bad fit and everything ends up going to Chris Godwin? Or is it
Yeah.
just that he's got so many weapons, everybody does well? Because, I mean, crap, man, they got three great tight ends on that team. Gronkowski, OJ Howard, Cameron Brate. I mean, geez, right there, Brady's set, man. He's got five weapons in the passing game.
Well, plus you wait around. I mean, you could probably pick up Andrews from Baltimore at tight end.
That's
They
true.
got rid of Hayden Hurst. They have
Yep.
he was he's put up good numbers, and he was battling through injuries in 2019.
Yeah.
He
Yeah. And you look at their receivers, yeah, they got a guy, Hollywood Brown, working his way up. But yeah, I think Mark Andrews is the clear favorite for Lamar Jackson. And so, yeah, I mean, you just wait around and you take him. There you go. For me, it's tough. Tight end, man. I tell you, back in the Gronk heyday, I'll admit I took Gronk in the first round before. I love Gronk, but aside from him, it's like I can't take a tight end that high, man. I gotta wait. There's just it's too much risk, and when you look at the alternative that you could be getting, you just wait and stream a tight end if you need to, or do whatever you got to do later on.
exactly.
All right, so tell me, who do you got at sleepers, man, for tight end?
So one of them I had was OJ Howard.
Okay. I kind of like it, but yeah, let me hear a little
I,
bit more.
I just think with Gronk being out of football for, was he gone for a year, 2 years? I forget.
Yep.
I mean, he's OJ Howard's a solid tight end. And I think he can easily slide into that number one tight end role in Tampa Bay, which Brady loves throwing to the tight end. Look at him in New England. I just see OJ Howard having a solid year.
Maybe everybody focuses on Gronk and OJ Howard becomes like the Aaron Hernandez, the guy that's the number two tight end who's just getting it left and right.
Exactly. And the other one I had was Jonnu Smith.
Oh yeah, Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean he has had he has another year under his belt. He had
I mean, the guy's a freak athlete, I'll tell you that.
yeah,
And
last
yeah, you got to change into the guard finally with Delaney Walker. They committed to Tannehill, they committed to Derrick Henry. I think you have a lot of your pieces on offense returning bodes well for Johnny Smith.
you want to repeat that? We lost your audio.
Hey, maybe next week I'll get one of those, whatever you call them, lavalier, whatever mics. I'll put it on my shirt here. But yeah, no, I think you got a lot of the key guys from the offense. Oh, I'm cut out again, huh? Here, I'll just
Yeah.
let you talk. I'll just let you talk.
So I think with Walker gone, I believe,
I think so. Yeah, I think he's out. Yeah.
you'll have the you have what's his face? Who's the quarterback there?
Tannehill.
Tannehill. Thank you. I just I keep drawing blanks. I just see a 13th round ADP for him as being a little bit on the low side for a little bit on the high side, whichever way you want to talk about it.
I think I know what you mean.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
then I
so what I was saying is that I like the consistency with the players on offense, and I think it's going to hurt them a little bit that they're losing Jack Conklin at right tackle, but they're returning, you know, their top wide receivers, their tight end, their quarterback, their running back. I think that's going to help that offense overall get to the next level because now I think a lot of teams are going to focus on stopping the run again and they're going to get hit with the passing game this year. And so, yeah, that could definitely bode well for Jonnu Smith at tight end.
yeah, exactly.
So one of the sleepers I had, man, this is a guy that last year I think was on the radar a little bit, but injuries have just stopped him in his tracks. Is Chris Herndon with the Jets? Going back 2 years ago, you started to see him, I guess, working a little bit of magic with Darnold, and just the injury thing plagued him. But I think this year he's coming back. He's coming back healthy. And when you look at, they brought in Brashad Perriman, and I don't know, they still got Le'Veon Bell, but I think Herndon, if that offense, if the people stay healthy and they get working, he could be one of those guys that sits comfortably in that 5 to 10 range for the tight ends this year that nobody's expecting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just pulling open my magazine, I mean, you're looking at him ranked in the top 20 for tight end, yet he's 138 and a half. There's the average. Wow.
Yeah, those later tight ends.
Yeah, he's one of
They
those
fall in the
later
draft,
tight
but yeah.
ends. You're looking at possible solid production once one with Darnold being back full time. I can see that.
All right, so I got two other sleepers, and one of them is going to be ridiculous. Okay, I'll tell you that right now. But one of them, man, I'm just really interested to see what happens with Jay Sternberger in Green Bay because he's one of those guys coming out of college, has the receiving skills. Didn't really get to do much last year, but then again, he sat behind some seasoned vets on the depth chart. I think this year he's going to get his chance. And man, how long have we been waiting for Rodgers to have a legit receiving tight end? I mean, they didn't draft any wide receivers, so you're back to Devontae Adams and everybody else. This could be a guy that comes out of nowhere and lights it up this year.
He could. I think you say how long have we waited for Rodgers to have a pass receiving tight end?
Yeah, like Jermichael Finley going way back. Yeah, and he was always hurt. So,
How long is Rodgers going to be the quarterback?
hey, point well taken. Yes, I see. All right, so let me give you my other one, my other sleeper, and this is the one that I think is you're going to just think is ridiculous, and maybe I get some laughs or whatever. And I don't know. It's probably just more wishful thinking, but and maybe you can look up the stats here while I'm doing this. But um, Tyler Eifert in Jacksonville, I think,
Really?
uh, could be a sneaky tight end pick this year. Injuries have plagued this guy forever, but when he's played, he has been dominant. And last year was the first year that he actually got healthy and put up some quiet numbers to show maybe he's finally getting back. And I think the change of scenery going down to Jacksonville, you got a team that's got a young quarterback, some other wide receivers, a good running back. I think Eifert could surprise some people this year. And like I said, it's probably wishful thinking because I like him. I liked him coming out of Notre Dame. The guy's always been a difference maker on third down. He's been a difference maker in the red zone. I don't know. I just want to see him finally put it together.
So you said look up the stats. Jacksonville's just looking at him. Jacksonville's overall tight end usage last year, 53 receptions, 459 yards, 3 TDs on 79 targets.
Yeah.
Eifert had 43 of the 53 receptions.
I think he was in Cincy last year.
Huh?
I think he was still in Cincy last year.
Oh, yeah. Thank God. I was just like, I was looking at these numbers and I was like, holy shit. Like,
90% of the stats? Yeah.
yeah, 63 of the 79 targets. I was like, how can this be possible?
But wait, so you said he had 43 receptions.
He had 43 receptions,
I mean, that's sneaking
436
back on the
yards.
radar, man.
Yeah. So I was looking at it. I was like, my memory in football is we got to get football back because
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean I'm not remembering all this crap. But yeah, I could see that. I
Well,
could
hey,
see him
this
as
is
a
why we're
sleeper.
doing this because we just need to embrace it as tight as we can.
Yeah, I could see him as a sleeper with his stats. 3 TDs caught, or wait, yeah, 3 TDs caught 2/3 of the passes, 66% of the passes thrown to him, 10 yards 10 yards a catch. Yeah, I could see that.
All right, so where do you want to go next, man? Do you have some other value picks or, some sleeper picks, or you want to talk about value picks at tight end?
No, I didn't have any other real sleeper picks at tight end.
All right, so who are you thinking for value?
I was thinking, and while I'm saying this, I'm trying to glance for his stats last year, but Noah Fant in Denver.
Okay, I like it.
So I mean, you're looking at a ADP of 126.
Yeah, I was just
He
about to pull him up. Yeah.
last year he had almost 600 yards receiving, 3 TDs, caught 40 of the 65 targets, 40 of the 40 catches and 65 targets. I mean, you're looking at Tyler Lock,
Drew Lock.
Drew Lock. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Hey, it's getting late. I get it. We're cool. Well, it's getting late for me. It's still early for you, but hey, we don't have to tell anybody that. Oh, too late.
Yeah. No, my brain just melted on me.
Yeah, no, I agree. He for a rookie had some good stats. Coming out of Iowa, he had some good hype as a receiving tight end. He was the other guy. I mean, Detroit got Hawkinson, so we learned a lot about Noah Fant through the draft process last year. And I think with the combination of quarterback play, bad offensive line, just the team kind of in flux last year, and him doing what he did. You expect him to take that next step this year. You expect Locke to take that next step this year. Yeah, I think Fant definitely has a lot of upside.
Yeah, I think that was my only one really
For value.
for tight end for
I got you.
value.
So
Like
I
I mean,
had,
there's here and there stuff, but
oh yeah, so I had a couple of them, and one of them was Dallas Goedert from Philadelphia, and you touched on it earlier. They like to throw to their tight ends. Ertz is obviously the clear number one, but I think with that turmoil at wide receiver that we talked about. I think this guy's going to get a little bit of action this year, a little bit more than he's normally gotten, and that could put him, down on the list, but relevant in fantasy for tight end. And I think it's
I'm
every
gonna have
year
to
you
hold on.
yeah, go ahead.
Hold a second. You're cutting in and out, so I want you to be able to. I want to actually hear what you say as opposed to try to read your lips.
I got you. So yeah, so basically what I'm saying is, Philadelphia, they have a situation at wide receiver that's shaky this year. Deshaun Jackson got in trouble. Alshon Jeffrey is going to start on punt. Their third guy is a rookie, which I'm high on. I think he's got a lot of potential. Earth, he's stable. He's rock solid. But I think Dallas Goedert gets some action behind him because they're going to need to throw to someone, especially early on in the year. And he's proven he can do it. Like he's cutting out.
Yeah.
Oh, I might have to switch my mic over. How am I
Yeah.
doing
So
now? Can you hear me
you're
now?
good. You're good now. You're right. He's the number two tight end there. He had 607 yards. Yeah, 607, 5 TDs last year. And that was in 15 games. Um, Ertz tends to miss games because of injury. He did last year. He probably will this year coming in. You have the turmoil at wide receiver like you mentioned with Jackson and who's the second guy there?
Alshon
Uh,
Jeffrey.
Alshon Jeffrey, who can't catch the ball, and then you have the rookie who we're both high on the rookie as the number three wide receiver there. I could see that.
So my other pick, and I
I'm
had
sorry I couldn't hear it.
maybe this is getting in the way. Is that a little better?
There we go.
All right. So my other pick at tight end is Hayden Hurst, and so he was sitting in Baltimore last year behind Mark Andrews, rightfully so. Mark Andrews tore it up, but he gets moved over to Atlanta, replacing Austin Hooper. And I don't know if he hits the numbers that Austin Hooper hit last year, but I think he could walk in and get darn close to it, which definitely puts him on the fantasy map.
Yeah, and I mean Atlanta loves to throw the ball.
Yeah.
Last year Hooper had 800 yards, 6 TDs on 75 catches in 13 games.
Yeah.
So I could see that. I I looked at him. I kind of threw it off because I'm not 100% sold on Atlanta's offense this year. So I kind of set him aside as not being very valuable.
I got you.
But I could see that.
Yeah, I think, when I look at the tight ends, there's a lot of them that are later in the draft that I think you could throw a dart at. And I know most of them won't pan out, but hey, that's how tight end usually is. You take a flyer and you hope it works. And if it doesn't, don't be afraid to stream it. Switch it up every week if you have to.
Yeah, it's just easy to do with tight end because I mean you don't get the top one of the necessarily get one of the top say 4 or 5 tight ends and maybe even higher, maybe say 3 4 tight end, one of the top 3 4 tight ends in the league. You're probably looking at streaming your tight end every week anyways.
Yep. Yep. All right. So what do you think? You want to move to defense?
Defense, the one I didn't do. So
All
yeah,
right.
I can.
Well, here, listen, I'll let you do a little bit of skimming through the pages while I give you my couple of picks here on defense. And I'll just start right off the bat. This one, it might burn me. Honestly, it might burn me, but I think Chicago is going to be a bust at defense. Um, I don't know, man. They're ranked as the fifth defense going into the year this year. At least right now, here we are in mid-July, ranked as number five at defense, and I just don't see them doing what they did 2 years ago with Vic Fangio. I just, they've got all the talent, but last year they fell short, and I just see them once again coming up short. I think they'll be okay. I just don't see them being top five. And I don't know. I mean, hey, maybe they prove me wrong. I just think of like the days of the Bears defense just being dominant, and I'm just not seeing dominance in that team right now.
I could see that. I mean, I don't want to pick the Bears for anything, so I'd love to pick them for a bust, but that's my Detroit fandom kicking in.
Well, yeah,
Plus,
hey, obviously we got to be a little bit biased too, right? See, normally I'm the opposite. I'm like, oh, the Bears are going to kick our asses. But and actually, they probably will kick our asses. I just think, in a general sense, from a fantasy standpoint, they're going to let people down at number five.
I'm gonna go with New England.
Yeah, I mean, hey, they tore it up last year, but can they do it again with maybe a different game script on offense?
Yeah, and plus with New England, you're looking at Jarrett Stidham or Cam Newton at quarterback, and I think that's gonna gonna hinder or hurt their defensive value because their defense is going to be on the field a lot this year.
Yeah, it could be. It's definitely going to be a change of pace. Yeah.
And as what was that number three?
Where they're ranked
This
this
one has
year?
them. This one for ADP has them fifth defense.
Yeah, yeah, I got them at yeah, on ADP I got them at fifth. Yeah, and then Yahoo ranked them at six. But yeah, I mean, I got to expect somewhat of a decline from them. I think, when I look at the teams above them, you got San Fran, Baltimore, Pittsburgh. Yeah, I think that's rightfully so. When you look at the teams behind them, Minnesota, Kansas City, Los Angeles Rams, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's a spot for them. Honestly, defense is so, every year it varies so much in fantasy football that it's just you can't expect them to repeat what they did last year. No way.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, I think with defensively, I think Kansas City's better than them defensively. I think
And Kansas
probably
City has a better game script. They're going to be ahead in a lot of ball games, which takes pressure off their defense. A lot of people underestimate the game script where, if you have a good offense, you get the lead, your defense is more likely to get a sack or a fumble or an interception because there's more pressure on the other team's offense. And so that is playing big time into Kansas City's favor this year, as it was last year.
yeah, exactly.
All
All
right,
right. So
so
what
let's
else
talk
you got
about a
at defense?
Let's talk about sleepers. Okay, so this is one that I think probably a lot of people are starting to realize is going to have a lot of potential, but I'm just going to make it my sleeper is Tampa Bay's defense. Everybody's looking at their offense with Brady and Gronk and everything they got going on there. But if you look at last year, as the season went on, that defense got better and better and better. And I think just like we talked about the whole game script thing, they're going to have a way better game script this year with Brady at quarterback than they had with Jameis Winston last year. And I think, you got an extra year of development. I think Tampa Bay's a top 10 defense in fantasy this year.
Well, I'm looking for them in my magazine, and they're not even in the top 19 that are ranked in my magazine. So I'll give you that.
I think Yahoo, I'm pulling it up right now. Yahoo's got them at 16th. And, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're not there yet, but, it's why you call it sleepy, man. They're not on anybody's radar.
There you go. This my other magazine has them top 10 defense. Yeah.
What? I guess hey, that helps me, man. That helps make my case right there. Somebody else is seeing it.
Yeah, and one of the things that this magazine points out is it is simply put, imagine if their offense didn't keep turning the ball over.
Yeah, takes a lot of pressure off of them, man. Uh, yeah, and then I tell you, my value pick to me, it's a freaking no-brainer when I look at this list is New Orleans. Man, all right. So I mean, I get it. I know New Orleans defense has been streaky the last couple of years, especially from a fantasy standpoint. But they've got them ranked as the number 10 defense And I don't know, man. I see them flirting top five. I see them definitely flirting with the top five this year. I think that their offense is just going to plug away, put them in a great position. They have a ton of talent on defense now. I don't know. I'm kind of in awe that Yahoo has them at 10, man.
I could see that. I haven't spent the time to rank the to go through defenses yet. I did
You're probably focused on
quarterback,
kicker. I know. We're about to get there.
quarterback,
Don't
wide
worry.
receiver, running back, tight end.
Yeah.
I didn't really have the time to spend much time for on the defense, but looking at New Orleans, I could see them as either a sleeper or a value pick. I mean, you're looking this
Yeah.
this magazine has them ranked top five defenses.
Dude, you got to send me that magazine, man. Apparently, we're on the same page here,
Yeah,
at least on defense.
both both my magazines have them at number five this year.
Nice, man. Nice.
Like just looking at this one has them as one of the only five teams to rank consistently in the top 13 for purposes 3 years in a row. Above average takeaways, pass rush.
You're talking about the Saints?
Yeah, only Pittsburgh has more sacks over the last 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, for the 10th ranked team, that's well worth it, man. Seems like a pretty safe team if you ask me.
Well, I'd say so.
All right, so I mean, I guess hey, let's just jump right into. I know you spent most of your time on kicker, man.
Oh yeah, you know I did.
No, hey, honestly, I'm just bullshitting. I don't think we got to waste any time with kicker. Let's be real. You wait until your last pick in fantasy, and you just take whoever Yahoo has as their top guy available. If he plays in the dome, that's a bonus.
Yeah, and you just go week by week. Good. Like if you don't get
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
one of the top producing kickers like with Watts or Tucker, then you just kind of go week by week on it on
Yeah.
who
But
you
don't be
think.
the idiot that takes frickin' Tucker in the seventh round, you know? I mean, just wait. You could get Zane Gonzalez in the 15th round and you're good
Oh,
to go.
I mean, heck, like here looking at the ADP for kickers, the top well this entire page, the top 50, top two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight.
Here's what I love about kicker. When you look at the Yahoo overall rankings, they don't even put a kicker in the overall until 166, which is Justin Tucker, which is basically your validation that Yahoo is telling you don't waste your time thinking about kickers. Just take one at the end.
Well, the top five kickers listed here have ADPs, ridiculous ADPs. I don't understand that.
Yeah, the ADPs are stupid. You should not be. Yeah, like let's see. Yeah, Tucker 77, Butker 83. I mean, honestly, man, if you take a kicker in the eighth round, you're asking to lose. I mean, unless you're like some freaking stud that has like every other pick in the draft, like, oh, there's going to be steals. You know, you have like a lot of luck work your way. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. I mean, if
Yeah,
you're
you
going to do
just
it, Justin Tucker's the guy, but just don't do it. I mean, here's the thing with kicker that bothers me is that, you know, a lot of people, they want to go after the kickers like Butker, that's on like one of the top scoring offenses. That's great, but you know the problem is you see this every year in fantasy. Those guys end up putting up a lot of ones because it's extra points, and they get four or five a game. But you know what? You find a middle of the road offense that has a kicker with a good leg. Maybe he's in a dome. Maybe it's nice weather. Maybe he's just good. And all it takes is two field goals, and now they beat Butker, who got five extra points. And so, you
yeah,
know,
or yeah, look at the teams that tend not to score touchdowns and
yeah,
score more field goals
yeah,
than touchdowns. Like Like, I mean, you're looking at the San Francisco's, Detroit's, the
Oh, this
Chargers.
this year I'm looking at Josh Lambo, man, in Jacksonville. I'm like, this guy, he's my sleeper kicker. If I had to pick a sleeper kicker, but I didn't do any research. I don't even know where he's ranked. He might be in the top five for kickers. I don't even know. So, but that's because
Lambo.
I'm not going to waste my time at kicker unless you really want to
80,
look at it right now.
ADP 135 and owned by 2%.
Yeah, see, I'm looking at Josh Lambo. He's not even in the top 15 on Yahoo for kickers. I don't
Yeah,
know. Maybe
so
maybe maybe he got cut. I don't know. See, I'm not even going to pay attention to it. I'll look it up later at the last minute, and then I'll be like, okay, this is my guy. Last year, Zane Gonzalez was my guy, and he was legit. But you know what? I still streamed that position so many weeks just because it's a kicker. And
ex- ex-
kickers are very similar to defense in fantasy, where they change. Holy cow! I just had like this crazy spider coming at me here. Kickers change every year in fantasy. You can't put that much weight into them, man. You know, like it just there's too many factors. If your team scores too many touchdowns, that's a lot of ones instead of threes, or fours or fives if you're kicking from distance. I better watch that spider, man. I don't want to get bit here.
yeah, it's kicker. I normally pick my kicker by being like, oh crap, I need a kicker, don't I?
Yeah,
So
yeah, because we pick, what is it? Our draft Sunday night before the season starts. If you don't get them, you miss the waiver. You can't add them to your team.
yeah. Oh crap, I need a kicker. Who's still available?
Yeah,
Somebody logically in our league picks their first kicker in the seventh round.
it happens every year.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's even higher than that, man. Like I
yeah.
remember the Guskowski heyday in New England, man. People were picking him in like the fourth and fifth round some years, and it's like, are you crazy? Like, how could you even do that? But people they get crazy. They're like, oh no, I want the top kicker. Well, just because he was the top kicker last year, man, doesn't mean he's going to be the top kicker this year.
Exactly.
And even if he's the top kicker, he's the top kicker. They're not that far apart. They're not that far apart. You're not talking Lamar Jackson to Sam Darnold. It's not that big of a spread. All right, man. Well, hey, I had fun. You got any final notes before we lock this thing up?
Well, couple things I was looking at
Well, yeah, give it a rip. I don't want to cut it
and
short. I'm just,
is is things that concern me coming into this year, like Derrick Henry being drafted six overall. Yeah, he's a stud running back, but he
it's
saw
high.
he saw high usage last year.
Yep, it could work
Or
against him. And honestly, like I was saying earlier, Jack Conklin going to Cleveland is going to affect that team, man. I don't know how much it's going to affect him. I suspect it'll affect Henry more than it'll affect Tannehill.
yeah, or Nick Chubb
Oh,
being
Chubb, dude. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
being
I'll
so
tell you
high.
my thing on Chubb. Yeah.
So the thing with Chubb is yeah, he saw high usage in 2019, but he didn't have Kareem Hunt for what, the first, was it 4 games, 6 games?
Yeah, as soon as Kareem Hunt came on, his stats went down big time.
Yeah, there's just
Yeah,
stuff like
and
that.
and I love Chubb, man. I tell you what, I shouldn't say that. I love Chubb. That sounds bad, but when he came out of Georgia and they picked him in the second round, I thought, oh my God, man, this team got a freaking steal. And like all the way up until last year when Kareem Hunt came in the mix, he was like doing everything I would have imagined for that team. And then Hunt started slowly chipping away at his stats. And I mean, hey, I think probably long term, it's good for that team because now you have two good running backs and your bell cow isn't getting burned out. But, from a fantasy standpoint, you're like, man, I just want that guy pounding the rock.
Exactly. Or like the Godwin Evans debate. Like
Yeah.
who the heck knows?
Yeah,
You
see,
pick
I'm
the
one
ri-
of those guys that when I look at Godwin and Evans, it depends on the quarterback. And that's where Brady maybe perplexes me a little bit because I don't know. I guess my inclination is that he's going to connect better with Godwin because he's always had like the twitchier, faster, kind of quick range guys. He's not had as many big body guys like Mike Evans. But, if I'm like looking at Cam Newton, man, I would love to have Cam Newton throwing the ball to Mike Evans because, you look at the history of Cam Newton, he did great with the big guys like Kelvin Benjamin and whoever else, Devin Funchess. It's like, but it depends on the quarterback, man. All depends on the quarterback.
Yeah. There's little stuff like that I saw in my analysis. Like I don't know Godwin Evans. I don't know which one's going to end up better in
Yeah.
Tampa Bay. And you pick the right one, you got you're lucky.
Oh yeah, and honestly, they should both perform this year because you have a stable quarterback dishing out the ball. But the risk is honestly, it's is Brady going to fall off the cliff? Like we saw it however many years ago with Peyton Manning. Man, I'm still baffled at how they won that freaking Super Bowl. Like his arm strength was gone. There was nothing left, and the defense carried him. And I don't want to say the defense carried him because he did make a couple good plays, but holy shit, Peyton Manning fell off a cliff that last year, man. It could happen to Brady at any year. It could happen to Drew Brees at any year. Philip Rivers in the same boat. I think a lot of people are expecting it's happening to Philip Rivers right now, but that's why we got to watch him play the games.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it'll be and the other thing with fantasy this year is one of the issues that I can see coming is you have to add to the depth chart for leagues
With
because
COVID.
with the protocols they're putting in place with COVID-19,
Yeah,
if a player tests positive, that player is going to be inactive for 3 weeks.
yeah, they're changing IR to let him come back sooner. Yeah,
Yeah, so but I mean it's automatically they're going to be inactive for they're out for 3 weeks once if they test positive. So you're going to have players test positive, more than likely have players test positive. And if it's one of the big time guys, like if Mahomes tests positive, he's out for 3 weeks
oh,
automatically.
that's yeah,
Boom.
and you got a 16 game schedule that could wreck your year, man. It could wreck your year.
Exactly. So if you're one of the lucky ones that is able to predict who's going to test positive and get that back up, you'll be fine. But that's worrisome.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's going to be a different animal this year.
That's about it.
All right. Well, hey, man, we've been kicking it for almost 2 hours. Let's lock it up. I'll get this bad boy put up on YouTube, and I'll call you in a little bit, man. We'll play some Tiger Woods or something.
All right, sounds good.
All right, man. Hey, here we go. Anybody watching? The 11 people that we had watched last week, I don't know who you are, but goddamn, it was awesome. And
It was me 11 times.
it was, well, from 11
No, I'm
different,
just kidding.
yeah, from 11 different profiles. I don't know, man. But hey, either way, it was pretty cool. And, whether people watch or not, I'm having a lot of fun. James tonight was like a whole nother level from last week, man. We came in and it was more organized, which it doesn't have to be. I think a lot of weeks I'm fine with it just being raw and off the cuff as long as we're talking about football. But I thought it was cool organizing it just a little bit because we both had a little bit of homework coming into today, and it makes you a little more committed to it when you got to think about it a little bit. But no, hey man, I'm having a hell of a great time, and yeah, we got to do it again next week.
Definitely.
All right, cool. I'm shutting it down. Take it easy,
All
man.
right. Later.